billion to fill. And that we've spoken to the IFS, or taken a look at the IFS, looking at your proposals for changing the Bank of England's function. And that is a very difficult and long process. That is very technical. That would not happen immediately.
Well, no other central bank in the world does this. This is a complete racket with the banks. And interestingly, you know, Paul Tucker, a former Deputy Governor of the Bank of England, fully endorses our plan, as do a growing number of economists. But look, I'm going to launch, and by the way, I won't call it a manifesto, because the word association with manifesto is lie. I'm going to launch our contract on Monday, where I'll lay out all of the costings of our plans. All I can tell you is what we're doing is bold.
The BBC are deceivers, and after years of unyielding attacks on Nigel Farage, it has become crystal clear that he will no longer put up with it. He is prepared to defend his beliefs and confront their ridiculous ignorance. Transitioning from the presidential election to the current turmoil within the Starmer government, Nigel Farage revealed a crucial truth to journalists with remarkable clarity. They do not listen to him and completely overlook the pressing issues facing our country. They don't listen to the public that lies to them and completely overlook the pressing issues facing our country. From Donald Trump to anyone who dares to challenge the corrupt agendas of major banks and elites, the media has demonstrated a willingness to go to any lengths to tarnish the reputations of individuals. They don't just label their opponents, they persist in their relentless attacks without hesitation. Yet, in spite of this, Nigel maintains incredible composure and adeptly responds to the hypocritical inquiries of journalists. If this can even be called journalism, it seems to have long since lost its true purpose.
What we want to do, and there's a trap here, you see. You're on benefits, you go back to work, you work more than 16 hours a week, the tax kicks in, you may as well stay on benefits. There is a terrible trap.
So hence the rationale to raise the tax threshold.
Absolutely.
That 100 billion, you say, is that from young... Do you say that number's from young people not working? So that's
that is
the
the
whole
benefits
on
bill.
benefits.
However, since the pandemic, a growing number of young people are saying they've got all sorts of psychological problems, but they're also not incentivised to go to work. We want to get people back to work.
I understand that. So the 50 billion, where will that money come from?
A lot of it will come from the racket that is going on. The government has been creating money, particularly during the pandemic. That money goes into the system, it goes into banks, the banks lodge it with the Bank of England, the Bank of England pay them interest on it. It's a racket.
During Nagi Munchetti's interview with her partner Charlie State for the BBC and the independent newspaper Brightbulb, discerning viewers couldn't help but notice the blatant bias that stood out. The questions and the tone of the report created the impression that the entire program was designed solely to portray Nigel as an aloof leader, incapable of engaging in meaningful communication. Meanwhile, the urgent issues facing Britain and the practical solutions he offered were left in the shadows, as if they didn't matter at all. Despite this, Nigel demonstrated remarkable resilience by addressing critical concerns for the younger generation trapped in a harsh tax system. His efforts to highlight the struggles of working citizens who are unable to save or achieve financial stability due to the overwhelming burden of a two-tier taxation system were entirely overlooked.
The front page of Reform website, as it stands, and I know it's not a manifesto at this stage, I'm not quite sure, do you call it a pledge? I can't remember.
No, a contract.
A contract.
This is what we will campaign
The contract, it says you'll set out your reforms in the first 100 days, is what it says. And you then go to say it's produced with advice from independent economists, think tanks and advisors. And a moment ago you said you're not about conformity. That just sounds like everybody else. Every other political party would say, we talk to independent advisors, we talk to think tanks. You just sound like everyone else.
I've been called many things over the years, but not like everybody else.
Well, no, I'm quoting from from Reform. That's what you said. It doesn't sound radical. That just sounds like you do the same as other people. You talk to think tanks.
I've just outlined some very radical proposals. Equally, we don't think anybody should pay inheritance tax until the estate is worth £2 million. We want to lift the VAT threshold to help small businesses. I promise you, what's coming on Monday is very...
Instead of addressing the real issues, Munchetti redirected the conversation, persistently questioning him about how he planned to finance his policies and keep his promises if he were to become Prime Minister. Her emphasis on large financial metrics seemed designed to undermine his credibility rather than engage in a discussion about the solutions he proposed. This led the audience to wonder, was this truly an impartial interview, or a premeditated effort to sway public opinion against him? The exchange felt like a scripted scenario that overshadowed the genuine debates and decisions crucial for Britain's future. The entire spectacle left a lingering impression that the country's pressing problems were obscured by a veil of manipulation and bias.
We are completely in the grip of big corporate businesses. That's who the politicians listen to. I know that from 20 years in the European Parliament. There are 5.5 million people out there, men and women, running small businesses, acting as sole traders, that frankly are having the most difficult time. I'm on their side and I'll fight for them.
Our time is short. Can I ask you about your comments about Rishi Sunak? And I think I'm quoting you right to say that you said about him, this is following D-Day.
Yeah.
So to put it in context, that was the moment when he left early and is being criticised. So you said he doesn't understand our culture.
Although many might attempt to challenge Nigel Farage regarding his responses and political ties to figures like Rishi Sunak, he confidently pointed out the obvious. Sunak was a disastrously ineffective prime minister. The issue lies not only in the fact that Rishi's background is completely at odds with the experiences of the working class striving for a better life, but also in their continued use of this phrase while ignoring the genuine needs of the people. It's worth noting that this has been mentioned multiple times in relation to Starmer, yet many overlook the fact that you cannot consistently pursue poor policies merely to stay afloat. In reality, they simply don't care, and Keir Starmer clearly possesses the intellect to understand the implications of his decisions. Another outrageous and appalling decision you may have heard about is that he compelled the entire Labour Party to vote against an investigation into a gang of rapists in the UK. At that moment, it became abundantly clear that none of their efforts had succeeded, prompting Nigel Farage to shift the conversation.
Very different.
You have a freedom, and you must recognise this, given what you previously said about how few MPs, even you, think you will get relative to the Parliament. It could be a big jump for you as a party, but relative to the Parliament.
Well, we'll see.
It gives you a freedom to say stuff, doesn't it? That you're not going to have to back this up and say we couldn't do it.
What I'm saying is this. We have a Labour Party that's won already. The election is over. We all know that. Your viewers all know that. Their thinking on economics, on all of the key issues of our lives, is actually remarkably similar to the Conservative Party. I'm arguing that for democracy to work, governments need to be challenged. And I think I'm in a far better position to do that than either Ed Davey from the Lib Dems, and Rishi Sunak won't be there. But the Tories are so divided, they don't stand for anything.
For those who watched the interview, it was impossible to overlook the blatant bias that stood out. Farage raised critical issues concerning young people trapped in the harsh state tax system, unable to save money or achieve financial stability. However, Farage, seemingly disregarding his concerns, quickly shifted the conversation to how Farage planned to finance his policies, completely sidestepping the systemic problems he had highlighted. This led to confusion. Was this genuine journalism or an attempt to undermine Farage's credibility? At this point, it became clear that the BBC was adhering to a specific agenda in its approach to the interview, and this was a calculated effort to tarnish Nigel Farage's reputation. Earlier, Farage, who described himself as a victim of what he termed corrupt media that supports the establishment, responded to Charlie's comments with irony. The State Department attempted to undermine his credibility, a remark that visibly irritated Farage. Yet, instead of reacting impulsively, he demonstrated remarkable resilience, a quality essential in politics. Drawing on his experience, he maintained his composure and confidently reiterated his policies, emphasizing his commitment to addressing Britain's urgent issues if elected. As Keir Starmer once noted, political debates can be tough, and Farage proved he was ready to defend his perspective with unwavering determination. He firmly asserted that his statements were no different from those of others, presenting a genuine challenge to all who sought to discredit him.
He doesn't know where the centre ground of opinion in this country is. Look, Rishi is Winchester College, Oxford University, Goldman Sachs. He has no connection with working people in this country at all, to whom, by the way, what happened 80 years ago is something to be immensely proud of. And the point of and I was there voluntarily, I wanted to be there. The point of it was to honour those last remaining remnants of that generation that did those remarkable
things. Can I be clear? You're saying his previous job means he doesn't understand a culture. I mean, you were a trader yourself, weren't you?
Yeah, I wasn't at Goldman Sachs working in a back
To
room.
most people out there, that won't make much difference.
I can assure
I mean,
I get on with people.
I'm not sure I understand the difference.
I get on with people of all backgrounds, all classes, Rishi Sunak lives in this very, very narrow little world.
What's even more concerning is that other news and independent media outlets have also encountered blatant bias from the BBC, leading to a flurry of unanswered questions. Officials from GB News have consistently highlighted the obvious lies and transparent manipulations that were shamelessly employed during the Prime Minister's debates. The real shock came when Channel 4, frequently criticised for its hypocrisy in presenting distorted narratives, dismissed the grooming scandal as false and unfounded accusations. This revelation further solidifies the belief that placing trust in mainstream media is a perilous gamble fraught with risks. Now more than ever, they are unable to conceal their deceptive practices, revealing not only their lies but also the narratives they have forced upon society over the years. Their failure to maintain credibility makes it increasingly evident that the media no longer serves the public, but rather their own interests and those of their powerful backers. This reality breeds anger and frustration among those who seek truth and justice. However, that doesn't mean Nigel hasn't attempted to expose them in the most forceful manner, with a determination that inspires and commands respect. What are your thoughts on this video? Share your opinions in the comments. See you next time.